On Saturday, February 21st, 2021, Anvil Yildirim stepped into the ring as a mandatory challenger for Canelo Alvarez's 168-pound super middleweight WBC title. He stepped in as a mandatory contender. This led to a Canelo victory and also what can be labeled as a mockery in boxing. Let's talk about it. What's good, YouTube? It's Stormybman and I'm back with another video editorial. Before we get started, I'd like to say shout out to the LDBC, the Lions Den boxing community, and Liberated Perspective, a third eye view of the world. For more content such as this, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Well, the title of this editorial, Mockery in Boxing, has a tremendous amount to do with the recent fight that took place between Saul Canelo Alvarez and Anvil Yildirim. The fight took place on February 27th, and we are now starting to see other fighters come forward and speak on what's really going on with Canelo Alvarez, his selection of opponents, and the produced effects from the fights he's fought. The fight with Yildirim really was no contest at all for an opponent who also repped at one time as a former sparring partner to Canelo. Going into this fight, no one expected this fight to be much of a challenge for him. And seeing that the way that Yildirim performed, absolutely throwing barely a shot in anger or in competitiveness toward Alvarez inside the 3 rounds that they danced, people now feel that Alvarez is just looking to cakewalk the rest of his way in his career. Even though he has a fight on the horizon for May of 2021 against possibly Billy Joe Saunders, no one really wants to see this. People are starting to become fed up with Alvarez and the show he's putting on. Just recently, Terrence Bud Crawford, who attended the fight, by the way, between Alvarez and Yildirim, is stated, when you look at Canelo's career, it's like he shied away from the black fighters. You know, and he gave that interview with those comments on a Sirius XM boxing interview. He says, I think the black fighters give him the most problems. This could be very true, but it's also something that the masses don't really want to hear. When Canelo rose to prominence and he thought that he would be in a position to dethrone Floyd Mayweather, there's a fight that took place shortly before that against Austin Trout in April of 2013, where he won a unanimous decision against Trout, but the scorecards told a different story. The scorecards read 115 to 112, 116 to 111, and 118 to 109. Now, as we look back on that fight, the scorecard that was closest, the 115 to 112, by then Judge Ray Danseco, told the story of that fight. And that meant with that score, the fight could have gone either way. But the 116 to 111 and the terrible 118 to 109 told a different type of story of what we've been seeing with Canelo Alvarez in his matches. There is a concerted effort to make sure, or to ensure, as long as he meets the final bell, he's probably up on at least one judge's scorecard 3 to 4 rounds before the first bell to a fight rings. Now that might not be a popular comment or sentiment against this fighter, but the thing about it is, Canelo is the type of fighter, he doesn't need that type of assistance. But such is boxing, where he is receiving it, whether he wants it or not. Bud Crawford's remarks ring true. When Canelo campaigned at his own weight of 155, there were at least 3 fighters within range at that time, Erisande Lara and the 2 Charlo brothers, who he could have fought at that time. Now, he did end up fighting Lara, but it was a little bit later. Now, the 2 Charlo brothers, Jamal and Jamel, they were formidable enough that one of them, Jamal, fought on the undercard when Canelo faced off and defended his title against, who was that guy? I'm trying to remember. Forgive Stormy for not having that particular information. But I want you to know that the Charlo brothers have always been there. He immediately moved up and vacated those weights because those men were coming on as challengers, and he may not have wanted to meet that challenge at that time. Fact of the matter is, after double checking, in April of 2013, it was under the undercard of Alvarez versus Austin Trout with those questionable scorecards, that we had 2 other promising 154-pounders who challenged that night. We had Jamal Charlo taking on Orlando Lara, and we had Julian J. Rock Williams taking on Deshaun Johnson. Both Charlo and Williams on that night that they fought on the Alvarez Trout undercard, they were 12-0 and 11-0 respectively. Basically on the come up and willing challengers for future dates with Saul Canelo Alvarez. He made certain to not stick around for that talent. And I'll tell you something, it's very telling, because he's only hovered around that weight class looking to take on other fighters that were less risk, especially seeing that he, shortly after the Trout fight, he ended up challenging Floyd Mayweather Jr., where Floyd won a majority decision, but it should have been unanimous. And another thing about those scorecards against Mayweather, you had one judge who had it 117 to 111 for Floyd. Another judge had it 116 to 112, which is okay, it's understandable. But then you had a judge, C.J. Ross, who scored it 114 to 114. Ridiculous. Floyd Mayweather has never come close to decisions based on scores like that. Floyd has always separated himself from his challengers. That's the thing that I'm trying to say about the mockery in boxing. Here, they're trying their damnedest to manufacture a champion in Canelo Alvarez, who doesn't need that type of help. He has the talent and the ability to go out there and win fights without having so much help on the scorecard. And if he happens to drop a decision, so what? This is a part of the sport. But when you see them now allowing him to take on opponents like Anvil Yildirim, then they have to be insulting the boxing public's intelligence. The man deserved to be been in the ring with Saul about as much as I did. And with all of the fighters out here who stand to present some type of formidable challenge, it's quite disrespectful for those who box to earn a living to not even get considered. When you guys sit around and you say things like, well, who has Andre fought? Who has Charlo fought? Who has Mel Charlo fought? Even though Mel has cleaned out pretty much the division of 154, you're calling into question talent that can be tested and is possibly there to rise to the challenge of a test. But if you never have a person who has the name that presents that challenge to them, then yes, of course not. They will not be recognized. Canelo got recognized when Floyd gave him a shot, but Floyd also maintains that he helped build him up so he could knock him down. That's the one thing that Canelo doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to build anyone up on his name, so he's going to continue to stay safe in a pocket where he can continue to command big dollars for very minimum risk. It's a mockery in the sport of boxing. And for anyone else out there that has adopted this blueprint, it's the same for them. Is Stormy trying to just come down on Saul? No, I'm coming down on the sport of boxing for allowing this type of thing to happen, and for fans who are out there so busy trying to stand on national pride and stand on favorite fighters that they cannot see that they're being manipulated for their dollars because they don't have much sense. Think about it. Just go back. Look through the records. The truth is right there and it's evident. What Terrence Bud Crawford came out and said most recently is not something that should surprise anyone. And for those who now want to attack Terrence Bud Crawford, he's been in a position and is currently in one where he's trying to make a big fight, but under the auspices there are certain things at play that are just not allowing it to happen, whether it be from his promotional side or the other, or a combination of the two. The fans should just demand the best fight the best. Stop picking sides, stop supporting this and that, support the sport, and support the sport in a just and fair manner, and demand that these judges be held accountable. What happened recently in the Chocolatito fight, where a judge was held accountable for his ridiculous scorecard and the outcome of that fight, more actions need to be taken like that, and some of these men need to be suspended, if not banned from the sport. Leave comments. Let Stormybman know what you think about the mockery in the sport of boxing. We can talk about it, but we need to be proactive about it. This is all that I have for you at this time. Until we meet again, everyone out there, please remain safe, and we'll catch you again soon. Peace.